Today's video is how to build a regenerative civilization through your own life, and really in a way where you can make a living, where you're you don't have unlimited money and time, but you're finding your place in the world, and you can make money, you can have a life, you can have a home. So it's a really big topic, and it's kind of like this is just sort of an introduction to the problem that I'm trying to solve, and that I'm trying to help other people solve. So basically, this is for you if you believe in right livelihood, you believe in making a living that makes the world a better place. You're not interested in just money for money's sake. You care about the planet. You care about justice. You care about democracy. You care about equal rights, not just for Americans, but for all humans. And you care about diversity and ecosystem health. So if that's you, then this talk hopefully is going to help you make your life a little bit easier, a little bit more directed in a productive direction, a little bit more joyful, a little bit more clear. So let's see, how can I help you first? What's the first order of business? Well, the first order of business, I think, is we kind of have this false separation between, so let's call this the false separation between self and society or planet. So if you're already on the environmental philosophy train, you may have already adopted the idea. I hear a lot of times people say we come from nature, or we're connected to nature, which is completely one of the reasons that we're destroying the world, because there's this fundamental idea that somehow we're separate than nature, which is really the core of why we are destroying the planet, is because as humans we have this false idea that somehow a god dropped us on this planet, or had some sort of grand design, or that our self is in alignment with something other than just nature, instead of being one with the natural environment. So the first thing that I don't know how this is going to help you if you're not already there. I guess it helps me. It helps me to ground myself in the natural world and have a little bit more peace about my place in the world. We owe our lives to like the way I have a prayer practice in the morning, and I give thanks to Mother Earth, Grandmother Ocean, and Great Grandmother Universe. And then I give thanks to my ancestors, my father, my mother, grandfather, grandmother, both sides, and then going all the way back to the first life. The first life is my oldest ancestor and your oldest ancestor. And we owe homage to that. We need to respect that. We don't get here without their trials and tribulations. And then from there, in the ancestors, you have your brothers and sisters in the life kingdom. You have the plants and the animals, and the fungi and the bacteria and the viruses and the insects. And in this beautiful concert, this beautiful harmonious dance, we get to exist today. Like, it doesn't, without all of them and without all of their ancestors and the first lives that fed them, you don't get to be alive. And that is so not appreciated in Western culture, at least. I don't know if it's appreciated more in, say, for example, in Shinto culture or in Taoism, it may be. But I don't think it's articulated enough. Like, I think if you and I spread the word that all of us need to give thanks, to give respect and homage to our ancestors all the way back to the first life, and our brothers and sisters in the life kingdom and all of their ancestors back down to the first life. Um, so that's the nature part of it, and that's what's missing in today's civilization. But one of the things I think it's super important for us to acknowledge is that the mother aspect, the nature aspect, is not honored today. It's a long story about how that happened and how Middle Eastern Judeo-Christian systems in 1400 BC ended took the female out of took that nature element out of our spiritual equation in those particular systems. But you can't just focus on nature. So this is kind of where this, our world is so divided today and so sort of in a million different pieces, especially in the West. That division comes from people falsely separating the masculine from the feminine. It's kind of like if you take the yin yang symbol and you think the masculine up here and the feminine down here, and there's a little dot that is the center of the feminine inside the masculine, the center of the masculine inside the feminine. Well, those in our society, they're just like split and fighting. So there's a feminine dynamic that's fighting. You don't have to say feminine. Let's call it nature worship. There's a nature worship dynamic. Okay, so the camera just died. So hopefully this will keep going, and my wife's getting home, so I might have to end this. So anyway, so there's this false separation between the masculine and the feminine. Instead of integrating it, it is separated and fighting. And you have, so for lack of a better term, you have, it's pretty clear. You have a feminine dynamic that is, in America, for example, associated with the blue team. And then you have the masculine dynamic, which is associated with the red team. And then, of course, you have men and women in both of those camps. But it's basically an association with those larger archetypes. And that, there's always an inherent tension between, compassion and individuality, for example, selfishness and selflessness. And those, so the problem is that each side thinks that their way is the only way, and so what we need is an integration. We need an integration of the masculine dynamic and the feminine dynamic. And the masculine dynamic, is civilization. It is individuality. It is technology. We all love technology. That's a masculine energy. That's a spirit energy. You can also separate it in terms of spirit and matter. Like matter is feminine and spirit is masculine. But we run into this weird problem because it really roots back to these Judeo-Christian philosophies that originated in the Middle East and then were spread throughout the world in the forms of Christianity and Islam and Judaism. But they bifurcate and separate the world into good and evil, black and white, masculine and feminine. And it's starting to tear the world apart. I mean, it's always torn the world apart, but it's tearing the world apart on a global scale now. So we can no longer ignore it. There's always going to be, some of those dynamics, but we need like a macro philosophy that integrates it all. So we need nature worshiping and technology spirit worshiping, and those need to be fused. They need to come together into a oneness. This whole like free will capitalism, and then this idea of like socialism or communism or whatever the labels are that are given to these two camps. There's no the heart in the heart of this capitalist system, there's a little communist. And in the heart of this communist system, there's a little capitalist. So it's a very juvenile place that we're in on a macro scale. So we as a civilization have to grow up. Otherwise, we'll destroy ourselves. And I mean that literally and figuratively. Like, we will destroy much of what we created. We are on the cusp of another war cycle. And those war cycles are I don't know if those can be eliminated by this new philosophical idea, but they can definitely be tempered and minimized and slowed down. You know, I mean, if so let me say it this way. To build the civilization that we need, we have to transcend us versus them. We have to embrace humanity as one tribe, one species, with many subsets of tribes. So, you know, in America, it's America, everything is built on a mythology. And I'm going to have to define mythology a little bit. People think that mythology is this idea of something that's untrue, or it's other people's religions. But that's not what mythology is. Mythology is a shared story that a people tell in order to live, basically. So in America, we tell this shared story about, you know, the land of the free, the home of the brave. You know, we are a democracy, which that story is kind of unraveling a little bit, which is very unfortunate. You know, we're a place of equal opportunity, and that story is sort of unraveling too. Equal rights, you know, those things are kind of unraveling. It's the place of freedom is it's still in the mythology, but people are like, as long as they're not messing with, like, so on the red side, you know, as long as they're not messing with the types of freedom that are important to me, well, then I call it freedom. And then on the blue side, if you're like, as long as you're not messing with the types of freedom that are important to me, then we call it freedom. But anytime that those cross lines, then it's appropriate. It's appropriate to curtail the freedoms of the other side. And that conversation is not really being had, especially in America. I saw a chart recently about, you know, international organization that has been studying, has been, you know, doing a chart, a list of, sorry, I got a little distracted. Is doing a list of the reputations of nations around the world. You know, and the top is like Norway and Switzerland and Denmark and Finland and, you know, places like that. In the United States was, you know, somewhere in the 20s or something like that. And in the last year, the United States dropped like 18 points in its international reputation. You know, and that's directly because of this internal idea where we're just going to sort of take ourselves away from everybody else, and we're going to just take care of ourselves. And that's an inherently sort of, it's like a masculine dynamic. I'm going to protect me and mine, you know. But it's unfortunate because that doesn't honor what's in the middle, which is that compassion and caring dynamic. That actually it is in the interplay between those sort of protect me and mine and take care of all, which, you know, has kind of been for lack of, like, you know, America's a really flawed place, but that's been the mythology. The mythology is that we were the people who were on the crusade to try to help all people. Now, nature was never part of that. So I'm talking specifically about people right now. So with our Judeo-Christian foundation, we eliminated nature from the picture. And we also eliminated all other indigenous ways of thinking and living because those don't fit inside. Okay, my camera keeps overheating, so I'm going to have to wrap it up. Okay, so so we need a new mythology, and that new mythology, it's got to be a new religion. It's got to be grounded in the science and reality of today. Like I was saying about the earlier prayers, you know, there's everything about my prayers does not deny any of the modern science. It just doesn't work to try to create a religion or a mythology that doesn't have that. So that's the foundation of how to create a new regenerative civilization. Is we have to start evangelizing this new cultural mythology where all people are honored, where the earth is honored, and where we play our part in it. But also we don't try to separate these masculine and feminine dynamics, this technology and nature dynamic. They have to be integrated. They have to be like the yin yang symbol. We do have to embrace a little bit more the Eastern idea of community because we're moving away from that. And I'm not saying that the Easterners have it all perfect and we follow their lead. It's a fusion. It's a fusion of East and West that has to happen. Not just East and West, but this idea of masculine and feminine, this idea of nature and technology, individuality and community. Those are always going to be in inherent tension with one another, but completely connected. So that's pretty philosophical. I hope that helps you sort of ground your personal philosophy in a way where you can move forward. So the ultimate thing that we all have to do is we have to focus, we have to work on the culture. So if you're a content creator, a writer, an artist, even a business owner, whatever it is that you do, or even in your job or in your roles, you need to start promoting these ideas of an integrated self and community that honors both sides. We do have to move more back towards this community dynamic because it's separated, right? And it's separating right now. But we can't do it in a way that alienates the masculine energy. That was the problem I noticed in the 80s when I was growing up in Los Angeles. There was an alienation of hard power male energy, and you've got to bring that energy into the feminine. You have to honor it and allow it to be the protector that it wants to be, allow it to be the defender that it wants to be. They're just defending the wrong thing right now. They need to defend the greater human population and the greater community of life. Okay, have a wonderful day. Please leave comments below. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? And what do you think we should talk about next?